Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going back to the 1970s,
Ooh.
a time when paranoia and fear,
Yeah.
cast a long shadow across America.
Right.
We're going to explore two infamous crimes
Okay.
that really shocked the nation
Yeah.
and still fascinate us today. The Son of Sam shootings and the Jonestown Massacre.
These cases, while incredibly disturbing, offer a glimpse into this dark side of human nature.
Yeah.
They raise questions about criminal psychology and the allure of cults and the power of belief.
Absolutely. And the backdrop for our first case is 1970s New York City.
Oh, yeah.
A city grappling with social unrest, economic struggles, and a rising sense of unease.
Big time.
I mean, imagine a city on edge where a blackout could plunge millions into darkness and fear.
It was a very different New York than the one we know today.
Totally.
That context is crucial to understanding the public's reaction.
Yeah. To the crimes.
Right.
Think about it. Rising crime rates. The blackout of 77.
Yeah.
A sense of vulnerability hanging over the city.
Yeah.
It created a breeding ground for fear.
And then in July 1976, amidst this backdrop of unease, the first attack occurred.
Wow.
Donna Lauria, just 18 years old,
Oh my gosh.
was shot and killed while sitting in a parked car with her friend Jody Valenti, who was injured.
The seemingly random nature of the attack amplified the terror.
Yeah.
That initial profile of the killer was incredibly vague.
Right.
A white male, stocky build, dark hair.
Right.
Could be anyone.
It's chilling to think about how that lack of information would fuel the fear.
Yeah.
The media, especially the tabloids, like the Daily News and the New York Post, really seized on the story.
Absolutely. The headline screamed about the .44 caliber killer.
Right.
And speculation just ran rampant. Keep in mind, this was before the 24/7 news cycle we have now.
Yeah.
People relied heavily on newspapers
Yeah.
and evening news broadcasts for updates.
Right.
So these stories had a huge impact on shaping public perception.
I can only imagine the anxiety and fear that gripped the city.
Oh, yeah.
People changing their habits, women changing their hairstyles.
Wow.
Afraid to go out alone at night.
Really?
Everyone wondering if they could be the next target.
And the city held its breath, waiting for the next attack.
Right.
It came several months later.
Yeah.
And with each subsequent shooting, the fear escalated.
And then in April 1977, the case took an even darker turn.
Wow.
When the killer left a note at a crime scene. For the first time, he called himself Son of Sam.
That name, Son of Sam, had a chilling effect.
Right.
It gave the killer an identity, making him seem almost mythical, like a figure straight out of a horror movie.
It wasn't just a name. It was a taunt,
Yeah.
a direct communication. Wow.
That sent shivers down the spines of New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And then, in May, he sent a chilling letter.
Oh, wow.
To Daily News columnist Jimmy Breslin.
Okay.
He even mentioned Donna Lauria.
Oh, God.
The first victim, by name.
That letter was a turning point.
Yeah.
It revealed the killer's desire for notoriety.
Right.
His need to insert himself into the narrative.
Yeah.
He wasn't content with just killing.
Right.
He wanted to control the story, to revel in the fear.
It's like he wanted to be famous.
Yes.
Yeah.
To be known.
And the attacks continued spreading geographically, breaking any perceived pattern.
Oh, yeah.
He was no longer just targeting brunettes in the Bronx.
Right.
The randomness amplified the terror.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shattered any sense of predictability people might have clung to.
Yeah.
It reinforced the feeling that anyone, anywhere, could be the next victim.
The manhunt was massive, the largest the city had ever seen.
Oh, wow.
With thousands of officers working around the clock. Goodness.
To find the Son of Sam.
Right.
Finally, in August 1977, a break in the case came from a parking ticket and an eyewitness tip.
Wow.
David Berkowitz was arrested.
Can you imagine the wave of relief that washed over this city?
Oh, I bet.
This reign of terror had finally come to an end.
But then the story took another unexpected turn.
Oh.
Berkowitz confessed to the shootings, but claimed he was being controlled by a demon that had possessed his neighbor's dog.
A demon-possessed dog.
Yeah.
Wow.
This demonic dog defense, as it became known, was hard for many to believe.
It was a bizarre twist
that
raised more questions than it answered.
Right.
Was Berkowitz genuinely delusional?
Yeah.
Or was this a calculated attempt to manipulate the legal system?
Right.
Serial killers often exhibit
Yeah.
a complex mix of motives and psychological factors.
And even after his arrest, there were lingering doubts and theories about whether Berkowitz was truly acting alone. Some believed he might have been part of a larger group, perhaps even a cult.
Those theories, while intriguing, are largely based on speculation and have never been substantiated. But they speak to the enduring mystery surrounding the Son of Sam case.
So we have this terrifying case of a seemingly lone wolf predator terrorizing New York City.
Right.
Now let's shift gears and travel to a seemingly utopian community that descended into unimaginable tragedy, Jonestown.
From the urban jungle to a remote settlement in the Guyana jungle.
Right.
Our next case explores the allure and the dangers of charismatic leadership and the dark side of belief.
Yeah.
But before we get to the horrific events of November 1978, we need to understand the man at the center of it all. Jim Jones.
Right, because this story isn't just about a massacre.
Right.
It's about the community that Jones built.
Yeah.
The people who were drawn to his message and the tragic path that led them to Jonestown.
Exactly. Jim Jones was a complex and enigmatic figure who founded the People's Temple.
Right.
Initially, the temple attracted people from all walks of life, drawn to its message of racial integration, social justice, and community.
Right.
They provided essential services to the poor, ran soup kitchens, and advocated for the marginalized.
It's almost hard to reconcile that image with the horror that Jonestown became. It's like a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and blind faith.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that many people joined the temple for genuine positive reasons. They were looking for a sense of belonging, a purpose, in a world that often felt chaotic and divided. They wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves.
I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, that need to find a place where you fit in, where you feel like you're part of something meaningful.
Yeah.
But where is the line between belonging and blind obedience?
That's the crucial question.
Yeah.
And it's one we'll explore as we delve deeper into Jonestown.
Okay.
What's fascinating is how Jones, like many charismatic leaders, was able to build trust and exploit people's vulnerabilities.
So how did he do it?
Well,
what are the warning signs of a cult?
There are many red flags.
Yeah.
A charismatic leader who demands absolute loyalty.
Okay.
A group that isolates itself from the outside world. Control over information and communication.
Right.
These are all classic signs.
And that isolation was key in Jonestown.
Yeah.
Initially, the move to Guyana was presented as this idealistic vision, a chance to build a utopian community away from the corruption of the outside world.
Yes, but Jonestown was located deep in the Guyana jungle, far from any major cities. That physical isolation made it easier for Jones to control the narrative and cut off his followers from any dissenting voices.
And as time went on, the darker side of Jonestown started to emerge. There were reports of abuse, both physical and psychological manipulation and forced labor.
Wow.
The utopia was crumbling.
Jones became increasingly paranoid.
Oh, gosh.
Convinced that the outside world was plotting against him and his followers.
Yeah.
He instituted white nights. These terrifying drills where residents were forced to stay up all night, listening to his rants and preparing for a mass suicide.
Oh my gosh.
That he claimed was inevitable.
It's chilling to think about the fear and psychological pressure those people must have endured.
Yeah.
Jones was tightening his grip on the community, using fear and guilt to maintain control.
Wow.
He convinced his followers that they were under constant threat. And that only he could protect them.
And as the situation in Jonestown deteriorated, whispers of abuse and human rights violations began to reach the outside world.
Which led to Congressman Leo Ryan's visit in November 1978.
Oh, wow.
Ryan had heard the reports and traveled to Jonestown with a delegation to investigate.
Right.
It was a visit that would have tragic consequences.
Ryan's visit was a turning point. It was a crack in the facade of Jonestown, a threat to expose the reality of what was happening to the outside world.
And some of the temple members saw it as a chance to escape. They secretly passed Ryan notes, pleading for help, begging to be taken away from Jonestown.
But Jones saw this as the ultimate betrayal. As Ryan and his group prepared to leave with the defectors, they were ambushed by Jones's armed guards. at the airstrip.
Oh, wow.
Ryan and several others were killed.
It was a horrifying act of violence, a desperate attempt by Jones to maintain control. But it was also a point of no return. Back at the compound, Jones gathered his followers and delivered his final chilling speech.
He called it revolutionary suicide, telling his followers that the outside world was coming for them, that death was the only way to escape the evil that awaited them.
And then more than 900 people, including over 300 children, drank cyanide-laced Flavor Aid. It's a tragedy that's almost impossible to comprehend.
It's a stark reminder of the power of persuasion, the dangers of groupthink, and the devastating consequences of unquestioning obedience.
Jonestown has become synonymous with cult mentality, but it's also a story about human vulnerability, the longing for belonging, and how even good intentions can be twisted to serve a dark purpose.
What strikes me is the contrast between these two cases. We have Berkowitz, a lone predator driven by his own internal demons, seeking infamy through violence. And then we have Jones, who built a community, albeit a twisted one, based on manipulation and control, leading his followers to their death.
It's wild to think about how one person could convince hundreds of others to drink poison. It's hard to wrap your head around.
Right. It really speaks to the insidious nature of cults. And the power of manipulation. Jones preyed on people's vulnerabilities, their desire for belonging and meaning, twisting those desires into a weapon of control.
And it wasn't just Jonestown. Look at the Son of Sam case, the media frenzy, the fear that gripped the city. It's almost like the city itself became a character in the story.
Absolutely. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception and, in a way, amplifying the terror. Berkowitz clearly craved that notoriety, that sense of control he got from seeing his name in the headlines.
So are we saying that the media was partly responsible for what happened?
It's not about assigning blame, but it's important to recognize how the media can, sometimes unintentionally, contribute to these situations. It's a complex interplay of factors.
Right. It's not black and white. There's always more to the story.
Exactly. These cases, while shocking and tragic, offer valuable lessons about human nature, the power of belief, and the importance of critical thinking.
Okay, so if we step back and look at the bigger picture, what can we learn from all of this?
I think the key takeaway is that we're all susceptible to manipulation to varying degrees. It's about recognizing the warning signs, questioning what we're told, and not being afraid to seek out different perspectives.
So in a sense, these cases are cautionary tales, reminders to be aware of the forces that can influence our thoughts and actions.
Precisely. Whether it's the allure of a charismatic leader, the fear-mongering of the media, or simply our own desire to belong, we need to be aware of the potential pitfalls.
Wow. This has been a heavy deep dive, but super insightful. Thanks for guiding us through it.
It's been my pleasure. These are stories that continue to fascinate and challenge us.
So we have Berkowitz, driven by his own demons, seeking infamy through violence. And then we have Jones, who built this whole community, albeit a twisted one, and led them to their deaths. Both sought notoriety, but in vastly different ways. What do you think drives that human desire for infamy? And at what cost are we willing to achieve it? That's something to ponder. As we wrap up this deep dive into the dark side of human nature, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Two very different paths, both fueled by a desire for notoriety, but leading to vastly different outcomes. What do you think is at the root of that human need for infamy? That's a question that has puzzled psychologists and philosophers for centuries. There's no easy answer, of course. For some, it might be a thirst for power, a need to feel significant in a world where they feel insignificant.
Like they need to leave their mark, even if it's a mark of darkness and destruction.
Exactly. For others, it might stem from a deep-seated insecurity, a desperate attempt to fill a void within themselves. The attention, even if it's negative, can be a validation, a confirmation that they exist.
Yeah, it's almost like a twisted form of self-preservation, making sure people remember them, even if it's for all the wrong reasons.
Right. And the media plays a role in this as well.
Yeah.
Think about how we as a society are drawn to these stories, these larger-than-life figures who commit horrific acts. The media feeds that fascination, sometimes inadvertently glorifying these individuals.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Reporting on these events without sensationalizing them, informing the public without feeding into that desire for notoriety.
Absolutely. It's a responsibility that journalists and media outlets need to take seriously. But it's also up to us as consumers of media to be critical thinkers, to question what we see and hear, and to recognize the complexities of these stories.
Yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in the headlines, the shock value, the emotional roller coaster of these cases. But it's important to remember that there are real people behind these stories, victims and their families whose lives have been forever changed.
You're right. It's easy to lose sight of the human toll, the ripple effects of these tragedies that extend far beyond the immediate events.
I think that's one of the most important takeaways from this deep dive. The need for empathy, for understanding, and for recognizing the shared humanity that connects us all, even in the face of unimaginable darkness.
And that recognition, that connection, is perhaps the most powerful antidote to the forces of fear manipulation and the allure of notoriety.
It's been a heavy journey exploring the dark side of human nature, but ultimately I think it's a journey that reminds us of the importance of compassion, critical thinking, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.
I couldn't agree more. These stories, while disturbing, offer valuable lessons that we can carry with us as we navigate the complexities of the world around us.
Well, thank you for guiding us through this deep dive. It's been illuminating, to say the least.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this exploration. We hope it's left you with some food for thought, some questions to ponder as you go about your day. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking the truth wherever it may lead you.